she's slowing down. So, just a second. I want to welcome everybody just tuning in to the Cold Hard Truth on Sports over on Spreaker and SoundCloud. We had a little bit of delay of the start there, just to kind of tune everybody in here. Kevin Kress, my co-host, is back. This week we're talking a little bit about Tiger Woods, who will be competing this weekend in his tournament down in the Bahamas, the Hero World Challenge. Kevin is talking a little bit about how dominant, and you can go over to kevcrestsports.blogspot.com and search Tiger Woods, or you can go over to the chtonsports.com, search Tiger Woods. I believe it's over up on both. Did a great piece on Tiger Woods about a year ago, and you said you have another article going up on what site again? Uh huh.
Roger, Tiger. You know, it, that's a very very distinguished group. But in terms of what Tiger did for his sport, I think puts him above those guys just because of what he brought to the game, uh, especially the purses and everything else. But I would have to put Serena in that same category just because her sheer dominance when she's healthy. Okay, and then same with Tiger, Serena, and you know, and Serena's only her only it only got stopped because she's having a baby. I mean, she's pregnant.
Yeah, she
She's a
took
mother. I mean,
I think a year
but
off.
if when she comes back, yeah, take a year off. But we'll see how she does. But yeah, the spotlight this week, of course, is on Tiger because he's playing this week, and we'll have to see how he does. Last year, in his own tournament, in the same tournament, even though he didn't finish, I think he finished 16th, 18th. He still led the field in birdies.
Yeah,
So he's playing at a very high level.
and I
And then,
heard
of course, it wasn't.
an interview with him today, and he was just saying that it's nice to have a lot of these younger guys there playing with him this weekend. Some of the younger up and coming guys, but he said what would have been even cooler if he could get some of the guys that he played against at the high level back in his prime to come play in the tournament as well, just to have them kind of to back and playing again. Again, that's kind of Tiger's, just him, his ego also saying, "Hey, I still got it," and they probably don't. But still, it's also it could also be Tiger saying, "Hey, I enjoyed playing with them, and I would like to have them here." I mean, it could be a little bit of both, probably.
Well, part of the deal too is that uh, the season's longer now than it was a few years ago, and some of these guys just need a break. I mean, they don't want to play right now. I mean, they're looking forward to trying to hit the ground running. The season starts right after the President's Cup back again, and so I think part of it is that they're some of these guys they like to play, but they need they need some they need some time off. But I tell you, uh, I'm looking at this field. I mean, Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Hideki Matsuyama, Justin Rose, Brooks Koepka, Rookie Fowler, Henrik Stenson, Matt Kuchar, Alex Noren, Tommy Fleetwood, Francesco Molinari, Patrick Reed, Charlie Hoffman, Kevin Kisner, and Kevin Chappell, Neil Berger, and Tiger Woods. That's one heck of a field. I mean, that is going to be a really good golf tournament. And you got DJ, Jordan, Justin, Hideki. Wow. Yeah, that's gonna be a heck of a tournament. I'm going to be watching. I mean, and if Tiger can somehow, navigate through some of that, wow, it's going to be something else, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna DVR it either way. So if I can't catch it live, because there's a lot of college football and stuff going on this weekend, and I'll probably be writing more articles as well, because I'm sure by this weekend we're going to have some more coaching hires and stuff too, which we'll get into here in a little bit. And we're going to announce the college football playoff top 25, as well as I got Tennessee. The Volunteers fans made it to our Sorry Not Sorry segment this week for obvious reasons, which may not be so obvious to some of you. I do want to shed some noble light, if that's possible, on the Tennessee fan base a little bit later in the show, and then quickly not sorry erase it. So I look forward to it. Man, this week, just so if you're listening, usually you're going to hear a lot of football talk, especially this time of year. We mix in, like last week we had, we got the second person on the Pete Rose Banned for Life list for Major League Baseball. I talked a little bit about that in the beginning of the show. And outside of that, a little bit of boxing, but it's solid football this time of year, especially as we get towards conference championships, closer to college football playoffs and NFL playoffs. That's really when a lot of the tension, a lot of stuff start to heat up. And this year has just been like the NBA free agency for college football coaches. This at the end of this year, the coaching carousel has just been spinning. It's been the main attraction at the carnival this year, for sure. So we'll get into that as well. As this weekend, I know you're covering golf, and you were on your safari looking at lions and giraffes and stuff in Disney. Disney safari, of course. It's a different kind of safari. There's mice and princesses on that safari too. But did you catch any games this weekend?
Oh, of course, I catch all the games. I tell you, Auburn is incredibly impressive. And in fact, I picked Auburn to beat Georgia 2 weeks ago, and I predicted at the same time. I said this early in the season. I thought Alabama was going to lose the game, and so once I predicted Auburn to beat Georgia, and Alabama to beat Mississippi State, I was pretty much on the hook for Auburn to beat Alabama, which they did. And so, as you know, I'm on Lou in the Morning on Friday mornings, and we do a college football predictions against each other. Lou picks 5 games, and we go head to head on those. And so, I couldn't back off my stance. So, sure enough, Auburn beat them both, and we'll see this weekend. They got a rematch against Georgia. There could be some incredible chaos this weekend. You know what? There could be none. There's a case to be made that the top 4 teams, and we'll reveal those later, but it could all win their games this weekend, and there's no chaos. But history would say that that's not the case. That's not how it happens, generally speaking. That there is chaos. But look at the SEC and ACC championship games, and frankly, I mean, so we actually here. I think they've done a very, very good job Sunday.
And I look for big more in the top 4 this week are really in line with who won their season with their top 4 or top 6 really. the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter as much. Where I've kind of had than what they are conference, and most people give them credit for because not as many people as the SEC or clearly Big Ten is going to be the, but still we'll get into that here. We'll announce it. I'll go into the top 10. I'll do the top 7 pretty quickly, and then we'll get nation top 10. In the grand looking at, we're pretty much agree should be schools. Kind of look at top 6 there. A little issue with all right, so the top 10 looking at number 10 this week. Soundboard won't pull up. We don't get any dramatic music. All right, it's all good. Still going. Number 10 this week is the University of Southern California is back in the top 10. They're in at 10. Number 9 being Penn State with 2 losses. Number 8, just ahead of them, is Ohio State, clearly going into the Big Ten championship. They have Miami at number 7 with 1 loss, which some people have issue with. I don't have any issue with them. They're at 7. At 6, and we'll get into probably we could throw in kind of some argument. I don't know if you feel like maybe they should be in the top 6 or not, but number 6 we have Georgia, the Bulldogs there with 1 loss, only loss coming to Auburn, who I know before season I picked Auburn to beat Alabama. You picked Auburn to beat Alabama. You had Alabama with 2 losses again this year. They did get one of them. And the funny thing is, I was looking at the statistics on that, and Alabama coming in just ahead of Georgia at 5. And I think the committee is kind of saying that, hey, listen, Georgia fared a little bit better against Auburn. Not much better, but looked a little bit better against Auburn than Georgia. So that's kind of the justification there. But Auburn really has gotten handled here towards the end of the year. And Saban teams on the road have struggled against
Alabama's
opponents.
got handled.
Yeah, Alabama.
They have.
Alabama.
Yeah, they struggled against Mississippi State. That was a game that was probably winnable for Mississippi State at one point in that game. I agree. Now Alabama has had a lot of injuries on their defense, and that's part of the problem that they've had down the stretch. But they were dominant through a portion of their schedule. Now, the problem Alabama has, and why they're probably not at number 4, Wisconsin, is they haven't beaten anybody. They had that was supposed to be a signature win in week 1 this week 1 against Florida State. Florida State's 5-6, so that hurts that resume, as they say. And so Alabama does not have a real big win. I mean, they have 3 wins against top 20 teams, but they're LSU, Mississippi State, and now Fresno State snuck into top 25. But they don't have a win against if you look at their schedule, their schedule was not impressive. I mean, the SEC West was down, Ole Miss was down, Arkansas down. Their wins against the Eastern division of the SEC were not against top teams, and so Alabama. I think if Alabama had a better schedule, I think they would still be ahead of Wisconsin, because Wisconsin hasn't beat anybody either, but they haven't lost, and so I think that's the difference right now between Alabama and Wisconsin. But to watch Alabama play football, and listen, I think Auburn should be ranked number 1. They have 2 losses, and of course they lost to Clemson, and so that's where the committee's head-to-head comes into play. But Auburn team we're seeing today is not the Auburn team that played Clemson in the second week of the season. I can tell you that right now. Stidham at quarterback is way better. That defense is much improved. And by the way, Auburn let one get away against LSU. Auburn should have won that game. I don't know how they didn't win that game. They should be 11-1. But Auburn is a. I think Auburn's going to win the whole thing. I really do. They're the best team. I think they're going to. But right now, I'd rather see Alabama than Wisconsin because I think Wisconsin's going to. I mean, they're going to be lucky to beat Ohio State. I think Clemson, Auburn, Oklahoma are the three teams I really want to see in the college football playoffs because I think any one of them can win it. And I think they're undoubtedly the three best teams. I think obviously Oklahoma's juggernaut, Auburn and Clemson, and both sides of the ball are very good. And so we'll have to see how that pans out. But I think the big game this weekend really is going to be Wisconsin, Ohio State. What happens if Ohio State beats Wisconsin? Does Alabama sneak in? Does Ohio State get left out? As we've talked before, Matthew, as soon as the SEC, which can't be left out this year because Auburn or Georgia is going to get in.
Yeah.
As soon as the Big Ten gets left out, they're expanding it. Because say so, if Ohio State beats Wisconsin, and the committee puts Alabama in ahead of Ohio State, oh wow, that's where the chaos really begins. And so we'll have to see if they have the guts to do that because I'm not sure they do. I don't see how Ohio State gets left out if they beat Wisconsin just because of the politics of the situation. I don't see how you put two SEC teams in to get over a Big Ten champion. That's happening. I just don't.
I was wondering if the committee this week was going to have the guts to put Auburn in at number one. They knock off Alabama. They beat Alabama. Again, for those of you that didn't watch the game, the score was to a point where, it being Alabama, you feel like they might have been able to come back at some point. But, Auburn was dominant in the game throughout.
That score was not indicative of the way Auburn handled Alabama.
Exactly.
They beat them in every phase of the game. They beat them. They were never in the game. Jalen Hurts was totally taken out of the game, and that's the thing about Auburn. They're a Gus Malzahn coach team, so you figure, it's an offense. But Auburn's defense is. Listen, they only lost. What was the score? The Clemson Auburn game was 14-6 or something ridiculous like that, right? It wasn't a dominating performance by Clemson. 14-6.
Yeah.
So Auburn held Clemson to 14 points, and so I think we're going to see that. I think that's going to be in the championship game. I think you're going to see an Auburn-Clemson rematch in the championship game. Is what I think. And it could very well be a 20-14 affair, right? Because those defenses are really good. Clemson's healthy again. Auburn's healthy, and that's, to me, that's I think that's what we're going to see. And Alabama can sneak into the playoffs. If Ohio State beats Wisconsin, there's a chance for Alabama to get in there. They've got Alabama ahead of them now. It's 3 spots ahead of Ohio State now.
And
so let's see what happens there. I think that's, and of course, if TCU beats Oklahoma, right? If TCU beats Oklahoma, that's another chance for Alabama to sneak in.
TCU, from where the committee has TCU at 11. So the committee says TCU's not getting in. It's either Oklahoma wins and they're in, or the bill doesn't have a representative. And I think this will be pretty interesting. So just to kind of finish out the top 4. So far 10 at USC, Penn State at 9, Ohio State at 8, Miami at 7, Georgia at 6, Alabama at 5, and coming in number 4 is the only undefeated team in the top 10. Actually, the only other undefeated team in the top 15, which is Wisconsin. They've had a pretty Iowa-like schedule this year. It was very tough last year. They have a much easier schedule this year. And they'll be playing Ohio State this weekend. At number 3, we have Oklahoma. Number 2, Auburn, as we were kind of hinted at before. I was kind of wondering if they'd put them there at number 1. Clemson's been hanging around in the top 4 more consistently, so the number 1 team in the college football playoff ranking is the Clemson Tigers.
Well, but the committee's been very consistent, Matthew, and this is why I applaud them. Clemson beat Auburn. So if you have two teams that are close, if all the other criteria are pretty equal, and by the way, Clemson has 9 wins against top 40 teams. By the way, their schedule's by far and away the toughest of anybody in under consideration, and they beat Auburn. So the committee goes, okay, they beat Auburn. We're going to give them a nod. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You just want to be in the top 4, right? It doesn't really matter. And so at this point, I believe that Auburn's playing the best right now. But I tell you, Clemson handled South Carolina handily Saturday night, and South Carolina's no pushover. They came in that game 8-3. That's a pretty good ball club. And so I would maintain that the consistency of Clemson this season, with the exception of that Syracuse lost their starting quarterback in the second quarter, I would maintain Clemson still has been the most consistent, dominant team all year long against a very difficult schedule. Much more difficult than Auburn, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, or Alabama has played, or Georgia. None of them has played the schedule that Clemson has played. Very difficult schedule. Clemson went into Virginia Tech on the road. The top 15 team beat them. Okay. South Carolina on the road went in there, beat them Saturday night. I mean, this is a team that has consistently gone, has taken care of business, with the exception of the Syracuse game. And so I have no problem with rankings. I mean, right now I would maintain Auburn's playing better, but I can certainly see the committee's rationale for putting Clemson number 1. Defending champs, carried it through this season. The only loss was when their starting quarterback got injured. I can get that. I happen to think that Clemson, Auburn, Alabama, Clemson, Auburn, Oklahoma, as I said a few minutes ago, have separated themselves the way they're playing right now, okay, from the rest of the field. I think the champion's going to come from one of those three schools, the way I've seen it the last 2 or 3 weeks anyway.
It's, with the situation of Baker Mayfield being held out is something. But again, I didn't get so much into it. Again, he lost his captainship, and he lost his start for that last game. Again, this is his last game of his college career in a regular season. So evidently it was very significant to him. I don't know if it was a brilliant acting job, but he got it pulled, and we'll see. What's funny is Flowers, the quarterback for USF this weekend. He had a gesture, jacking off and doing it proud when he scored a touchdown. It wasn't very widely reported. But again, I haven't heard the media uproar about it. and him issuing apologies. It's probably because he did it going out the back of the end zone and not so obviously right at the cameras. That's probably why.
Well, I will say this of Baker Mayfield, and I saw his interview after the game. He was very apologetic and gracious to his teammates for pulling him through the week. But all the talk was about Baker Mayfield. What about those jackasses for Kansas that didn't shake his hand before the game? I mean, to me, that was nobody's calling those guys out at all, right? I mean, this is an athlete that reaches across the field to shake your hand, and you refuse to do it. Nobody's calling out the Kansas guys. I mean, to me, they should be called out for that. Now, I'm not giving Baker Mayfield a pass for his reaction after the game, but by the same token, what about those assholes, excuse my French, on television? But what about those guys, right? I mean, they were jerks. That's not right. I mean, that's not sportsmanship.
No, it isn't. And then taking cheap shots at him, particularly his throwing shoulder during the game, is a lot of bush league type stuff from Kansas. But what I guess the big thing is like, why are you letting these guys bait you in? It's Kansas. I mean, the joke is let me know when Kansas decides to come in Division I. That's the joke.
Well,
I mean, we've sat here. We made it. The funny thing is, they have a 5-star recruit at receiver. It'll be the best recruit they've ever gotten.
And I'm not giving Baker Mayfield a pass. He should be bigger than that, right? He's got to be better than that. But by the same token, Ohio State planted a flag in his field. He goes up there and wins. He plants in the. I mean, the guy's reacting to sportsmanlike conduct by other guys. Giving him a pass. He should be better than that. But why aren't we talking about the other guys as well? I mean, we should talk about the other guys in the same sentence. If you're gonna throw Baker Mayfield under the bus, you gotta talk about the Kansas players as well and their coach that allows that kind of behavior. A quality stand-up coach would not allow his athletes to not shake hands when somebody offers their hands before a game. I mean, that's not gentlemanly. It's not sportsmanlike. And so I'm not giving Baker Mayfield a pass. I'm just saying that we should also criticize the other side. And nobody is. I heard not one thing in the national media criticizing the other team for not doing that because of what Baker Mayfield did after the game or during his scoring, right? And so they're like, oh, we'll just focus on Baker Mayfield. That's not fair. That's just not fair. From a media perspective, a journalistic perspective, it's not fair. You need to focus on the other guys as well, because they weren't right either, and so they were both wrong. But we're just focusing on Baker Mayfield because he's the star. And so, Mayfield's going to get through this just fine. He's probably going to be a pretty high draft pick. I'm not sure his game translates to the NFL. We'll have to see how well he can adapt.
That's really where my issue comes in with him. I mean, undersized. He's really good. He throws well. He's a good arm. He's mobile, so he can get around. But he's short. The size is not there, and it's a wonder how will he transit. Is he going to be closer to an undersized player like Russell Wilson or Drew Brees? Or is he going to be an undersized player like Johnny Manziel? Again, with his attitude and the way that he carries himself, he seems to be hedging himself more towards Johnny Manziel than the former.
Yep. but we'll see. I mean, he does remind me of Drew Brees a little bit in terms of intensity and tenacity, and we'll see. He doesn't throw from the pocket. At least Drew Brees was at Purdue, threw from the pocket, even though he was undersized. But we'll see. I mean, you've got Tyrod Taylor, Buffalo Bills, undersized quarterback. He was pretty mobile at Virginia Tech, but
who will be starting this weekend, by the way.
Fairly successful. What's that?
Who will be starting this weekend, by the way.
Yeah, so you've got some you have some comparisons of guys that have done okay and guys that haven't done all right, right? And you know a lot of it I think has to do with where he goes, what team he goes to, because you've had pretty good quarterbacks go to bad teams, and you've had bad quarterbacks in Tebow, who was pretty successful at Denver because they had a good offensive line and their defense was good, and he won 8 or 9 games there, and then couldn't translate to anybody else. So we'll see. But Baker Mayfield clearly does a shot. I mean, that guy can play football, and he throws the ball. So his advantage over some of these other quarterbacks coming out of college is, you know, he throws the ball. He's not making a lot of yardage, you know, with his feet. Still football, and NFL's not throwing the football these days. So we shall see. Heck, I was wrong on Carson Wentz. I thought Carson Wentz was untested. And good grief, the Philadelphia Eagles are on fire, right? And that guy is playing great football. So, you know, I think a lot of it's a product of where you go, what team you end up with, what coaching staff you have, how you're developed. You look at Goff, right? What a difference a year makes, right? Jared Goff goes to.
I don't know if
the Rams.
The Goff situation.
He didn't play at first.
I don't think it's just a year of maturing. I think a lot of that has to do with the coaching, an offensive coordinator changing there. Absolutely, right? I mean, he's coached up. I mean, he's got a guy that you know, knows how to coach quarterback, and so I think it has to do a lot is a big factor in the NFL of where you end up and who your coaches are and what your situation is and what your offensive line looks like. And, you know, that's why Deshaun Watson, you know, he dropped down to a pretty good team. Now, he's injured, he's out this year, but I think one of the reasons he was successful is he ended up with a pretty good football team. And the Texans had wins, right? And a good defense. Yeah.
And so, you know, if you've been taken, you know, and the other thing about some of these guys is that, you know, the Eagles were a pretty good team. They traded up to get Carson Wentz. A lot of these guys end up with really bad teams. If the number one, if the team with the first pick in the draft actually takes a quarterback, that's really bad because that means the team's really bad, right? I mean, the Redskins traded up to get RG3. The Eagles traded up to get Carson Wentz. You know, these teams that trade up, that are good teams and get a top quarterback. Wow, that's a big deal. I mean, that's a recipe of success. These guys that come out of college, and you know, if you look at teams like guys like Eli Manning, you say, I'm not going there. I'm not going to the Chargers. They suck. You know, there's a case to be made for their rationale that says, I want to go to a better team. You know, I want to go to that. I'm not going to get sacked, you know, 40 times in the season. Now, then you got guys like, you know, Peyton Manning, who weathered that storm the first year. Troy Aikman weathered that storm the first year. They both went 1-15, by the way. Their first seasons ended up playing in the combined 5 Super Bowls, winning 4 of them. So, you know, it can work both ways, right? If you get the organization around you. So we'll just have to see. Baker Mayfield, I actually think that Mason Rudolph if you're looking at a quarterback from the Big 12, probably has a better chance at the next level. But I'm not going to count a competitor like Baker Mayfield, because you never know, who's going to be successful at the next level.
Hey, and that's just it. There's just some programs that put out quarterbacks and consistently. I'm not sold on quarterbacks from Oklahoma State. They seem to put up good yardage in college and go decently high in the draft, but I don't see them really translating to the NFL game. You see the kind of some of the same stuff with some of the previous quarterbacks in the Big 12. I mean, Chase Daniel, one of those guys, he put up some big numbers in college. Cliff Kingsbury, another one of those guys. However, one of the guys who put up some big numbers in college, his actual offensive coordinator, quarterback coach was Cliff Kingsbury, is Case Keenum. He's on fire right now for the Vikings. Yep. He's been putting up, 3 straight games. He's thrown for over 400 yards. It's phenomenal. And they're going to hot hand there. Teddy Bridgewater, I understand, is okay to come back as the backup, play as backup. But I don't think they have any intention on sitting him for Bridgewater. I mean, it's been almost 2 years since Bridgewater's seen live action, and Keenum's just on a roll.
Why would you bench Keenum right now, man? That team's they're right behind the Eagles in the NFC, right? I mean, they're right there. They're playing as well as anybody. Keenum is playing extremely well. They've got that in that defense. That's a great recipe, for success. You got a good defense. You got a guy like Keenum who can manage the game. But yeah, I agree with you on the Big 12 quarterbacks. I think a lot of it has to do with, number one, is they're totally a college system, and the defenses just aren't very sophisticated in the Big 12. It's all about the offenses, with the exception of TCU. Gary Patterson, has a very good defense there at TCU. But other than that, the whole league is totally college spread offense, shotgun, calling the plays from the sidelines, and I think trying to get those guys to translate and adapt to the NFL is problematic. I mean, you've got the guy with the oh my gosh, the kid from Texas Tech from last year that is at Kansas City right now.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes. Yeah.
Apparently, they're really high on him in Kansas City. So we'll have to see when and
the
if
fans
he
want
takes
to see him
over
in.
Alex.
Yeah, Alex has struggled the last couple of weeks, and
and Kansas City struggled. I'm thinking we're going to see Patrick Mahomes pretty quickly there in Kansas City, because they got to win some football games, and we'll see if that's. He would be the first
Andy Reid
quarterback in quite some time.
Andy Reid doesn't really pull the string on guys. Andy Reid will hang in there. No, he'll let his guys roll.
He stayed with McNabb forever, right? I mean, so we will see. But you're right. I mean, there has not been a Big 12 quarterback. In Case Keenum, I mean, he's been a journeyman. What's he in his 7th year? Something like that. I mean, he hasn't. This is his first time he's actually been successful at all. So,
well, actually, when he was a couple seasons he was with the Rams, because they seem to go through quarterbacks the same way that Arizona and the Texans do. He actually had some decent starts with Los Angeles, particularly the two starts he's had against the Buccaneers. That seems to be the team that he plays the absolute all-pro against is the Buccaneers, which a few teams actually have this season. But that seems to be the team that he does the best against. It's funny. It's like pitchers in baseball have that, and it's one of those things that I think quarterbacks in the NFL have that too, and that's just kind of his point. But I mean, he's been doing really good the last couple weeks. But so far, I mean, it looks like Wentz is pretty much a standout as far as young quarterbacks, and Goff has played well this season under new tutelage there. The one guy that I think we can all agree just hasn't lived up to the hype of last season has been Dak Prescott. Now, I don't think it's a surprise. There's a reason he was a fifth-round guy. I think last year was kind of those we've seen guys have good rookie years. The sophomore year is always tougher. But what we've seen this year, and what I've seen from Dak Prescott, and one of the issues with him and most young quarterbacks is he doesn't know how to throw receivers open. And in the NFL, if you're not able to put the ball to where your receiver can go get it, you're going to have a lot of trouble being able to be successful in the league. And he's finding that out this year. Where Romo had got into trouble forcing balls into tight windows and to coverage to make plays, he will refuse to do that. So it looks on a quarterback rating somewhat deceiving. He tends to hold the ball too long and loses out on opportunities. He doesn't see the field so well to where, again, and he doesn't have the anticipation to throw guys open, and that's a big trouble for him. And again, it's not to say that he won't develop, and in the fifth, sixth year he'll have learned how to do that. Again, this is only the second, hasn't even had 2 full seasons in the league. But again, this is part of the reason why he was a later round draft pick, was because he does have some deficiencies, and Dallas has had and again, and I mean, say he lost skill players. I mean, we can use another young guy, Wentz. Just take the Eagles, Kevin, and take the Cowboys, and the issues with injuries and skill players and stuff like that. It's very parallel. The big difference is the quality of quarterback they have and how they've been able to overcome that. And don't tell me, I mean, Jason Garrett in this offensive, you don't think that him and the offensive coordinator haven't figured out a system that works well for Dak? I think the system's there. He's just not able to fulfill what they need.
Well, let's talk about the Cowboys a moment. I mean, with the exception of last year, right? Well, they went on this glorious run with Zeke Elliott at running back and Dak Prescott doing amazing things as a rookie quarterback. Jason Garrett's tenure as a coach at Dallas has been pretty unspectacular. I mean, it's been really bad. I mean, they had a run of 8-8 seasons. I mean, Jerry Jones is a loyal guy, and that's the only reason that Jason Garrett's still there. And also because the Cowboys are still selling out games. He's still making money. But their success on the field, the Cowboys, the last 20 years, they've won one playoff game. One playoff game since their Super Bowl runs. I mean, they've been pedestrian. And so I think that's part of what we're seeing is I think it's poor coaching. I think Dak is, you're right, he was a fourth round draft pick. There's a reason he was a fourth round draft pick because he wasn't thought of as a franchise quarterback. Had a good season. I agree with you. But he's also not been coached up this year because the Cowboys suck. I mean, they were horrible on Thanksgiving. I mean, they look terrible. They're not even competitive right now. I'm interested to see how they play against the Redskins Thursday night, because right now the Cowboys are not a good football team on either side of the ball. I know they lost Lee, Sean Lee on their defense. They lost Zeke Elliott on their offense, but losing one guy on both sides of the ball in the NFL shouldn't make you uncompetitive.
Exactly.
And right now with
the exception of last season, they've lost Sean Lee every season. He gets hurt every year.
Oh yeah. Exactly. I mean, and by the way, they lost Zeke Elliott, but they brought in Morris. Not Morris.
Alfred Morris.
Alfred Morris. They're running the ball pretty well. I mean, they've got big holes because in the NFL, it's all about the offensive line. But gosh, the rest of the game is terrible. I mean, and by the way, as your listeners know, I'm a Redskins fan, so there's no love lost between me and the Dallas Cowboys. And gosh knows, my Redskins haven't been very good for the last 20 years either. They're both kind of in the same boat. But wow, I mean, I don't see how Jason Garrett survives this season. I just don't. They don't look very good. The Redskins actually are overachieving with a 5-6 record. They've actually done better than. And actually, if they found a way to finish that game against the Saints 2 weeks ago, they'd be in pretty decent shape. But the Cowboys they're not even competing right now. It's one thing, to lose close ball games, but they're not even in these games. And so I'm not sure. I don't see how Jerry Jones sticks with Jason Garrett after the season. He's already done what is usually a kiss of death and given a vote of confidence to Jason Garrett. You know what's going to happen, right? I mean, this can't continue. So we'll see. But I agree with you. I mean, I don't think it's all Dak Prescott. I think some of it's coaching, some of it's play calling, and some of it's Dak as well. That sophomore jinx thing. We'll see. But I think he's a decent quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a top-notch quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. They rely on the run, and when you're not running the football, and your defense isn't, the other problem is that, last year Dallas played primarily from the lead, and you can go back and look at it. Go back and look at their games. I think they finished last year. What were they? 13-3 last year, 12-4, something like that. They led in almost every game. That's a whole different way to play than trying to fight your way out of 10, 14-point deficits like they are this year. And they just don't have the team for that. They've got one wide receiver, Des Bryant.
And he's pretty.
And they've got a quarterback.
And he's pretty unremarkable. I mean, Des Bryant has struggled his whole career really creating separation, and he's just looked very underwhelming the last couple of years. Just kind of talking about Dallas's depth at running back. They released Darren McFadden. He was one of those guys, there in Fayetteville where you're at.
Yeah, he retired.
And he retired.
Yeah, he retired, Dave, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah. But, he was 10 years in the league, running back with a history of injury. Yeah, it's about – I saw my wife tonight. I said, B-Mac retired. She goes, oh, my gosh. I said, it's been there 10 years. That's a long time for running back in the NFL. He had a decent career with Oakland and Cowboys. But, if you're the defense coordinator and all you have to do is double team Des Bryant, that's a pretty easy task, right? Because you're right, he doesn't even get separation in single coverage for the most part. He just relies on his height. Don't get me wrong, he's a great receiver. Don't get me wrong, he can go up and get the football. But yeah, when your defense isn't stopping anybody and you've got to throw the football and they know you have to throw the ball, that's just not Dallas's game. That's not how they're built. And so I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I'm not sure they'll win another game. They may have won. I think they might have one game left against the Giants. They can probably beat the Giants, maybe. The Giants, did you see today? They're benching Eli Manning.
Well,
so
it was
Eli's not starting on Sunday.
It was it's a voluntary benching from Eli. As you know, he has a starting streak, the longest existing starting streak in the NFL. I know for quarterbacks at least, and they wanted to keep. Go ahead.
He passed his brother.
Yeah.
So he'll never catch Brett Favre.
No.
He have to play like 6 more years.
Yeah, it was like he had like 6,000 straight games. Like Brett Favre would go out there with his, I don't know, like he could have probably he could have 2 separated hips, and he'd want to go out there on his torso and play like it, and it would be he would do the jump pass from his torso and probably, I don't know, sling it for 400 yards in the game. Brett Favre is he's like the Chuck Norris of the NFL.
Yeah, he was special, and so I say benching Eli's going to fit, and I would halfway expect Eli to be another team next year. Just think of Eli on a team that's think of Eli Manning on the Texans, right? An otherwise pretty good team that needs a quarterback. The Jaguars. There's a bunch of them, right? That look what Peyton did his last 2 seasons with Denver.
Why not Denver then?
And Peyton wasn't nearly what he was in his heyday, and he still took him.
Yeah, Eli seems like he has more in the tank left than Peyton did at that point.
No question, no question. That's what I'm saying. Is it if you put Eli on the Jaguars or the Texans, especially if they get their defensive guys back, right? Watt, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you can see a case for, or even Denver. Even Denver. They got Simeon and Osweiler and Paxton Lynch. None of them. Lynch is injured a little bit. None of them seems to be able to play quarterback. I mean, you've got 3 or 4 teams that could be very competitive with a quarterback, which by the way, we haven't talked about this on the show the last few weeks, but why isn't Colin Kaepernick playing football? It's ridiculous. We're talking about teams with Case Keenum is a star, right?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Tom Savage is playing quarterback for the Texans, right? I mean,
I don't know if that's technically that is what he's doing, but what he goes out there and does on the field, it's just I don't know. Tom Savage is not a starting quarterback in the NFL, nor is Brock Osweiler, and if you've played for the Texans, if you are currently in the league and play for or have played for the Texans, obviously with the exception of their rookie quarterback, you're probably not a good quarterback. You're probably not a starter in the NFL. It's the only place in the NFL that has had the type of issues at quarterback, the revolving door, except for they spend money on people that don't pan out, and the Browns spend draft picks on guys that don't pan out. It's like the same situations, except for the Texans are in a worse division, and they have a phenomenal defense. By the way, Jadeveon Clowney, it's nice to see that guy got in the weight room and figured out how to do squats. Because I know he was he was slim coming out of college, and 2 years, basically kind of 2 redshirt years almost in the NFL. He's been primed this year, and he's done well. He's done well.
How bad? Okay, you mentioned the Browns.
Yeah.
How bad an organization are the Cleveland Browns?
It sounds like that's the setup for those jokes. You'd be like, oh, God, I saw this girl the other day. She was fat. Like the crowd would say, how fat was she? Like, man, the Browns are bad. How bad are they? I don't know. It feels like a setup for a Rodney Dangerfield routine, you know? Like, get no respect.
I know.
No respect.
I know. It's they bought your trade. I mean, they can't even make a trade. I mean,
they said, you know what? We're on such a roll with shit quarterbacks. Let me get your shit quarterback and give you a lot for them, and I'll go ahead and cut him.
But they can't even. But they can't even send a fax to get basically what is a middling quarterback, right? I mean, you really think McCarron's going to team? I mean, that's your savior? I mean, is that's your trade? You're going to get McCarron? That's the guy? I mean, the backup to Andy Dalton, who is exactly
not all of us can
gift,
get the
right?
supermodel.
So you the guy can't even start in Cincinnati, and he's your guy? I mean, oh, come on.
Hey,
how bad is that?
Like they say,
how bad an organization.
See, the Browns, like they said, it's a drinking city with a football problem, but I can clearly tell when it comes to looking at quarterbacks, they definitely have beer goggles on. They've never made any good choices. And again, you'll see guys that'll go to teams like Case Keenum, perfect example. With the Texans, he threw around the ball a little bit in relief. Okay, he's still a backup. He went to and had a few decent games with the Rams. He's still a backup. But now he's eventually matured and progressed, and he's having an outstanding season, right? Right now, and even so him, a guy that's an otherwise backup quarterback that shouldn't do much at all, is having a phenomenal season. You have never seen a guy that was a Browns quarterback go anywhere else, no matter what system they go into, and then, oh, he's good. It was just the shitty Browns. No, they just find the shitty quarterback.
They're broadcasters. They're broadcasters. Is what they're
like,
broadcasters.
I feel like they're the hall monitors of the league. They're like, oh, no. You know, yeah, like the parents checking the candy. Oh, no, that's bad candy. Let me take the bad candy. Don't eat that. Don't eat that.
And the guys that Cleveland's passed on, it's like a Hall of Fame roster, right? I mean, it's like, they passed on Carson Wentz, right?
Yeah.
They traded down. They're going to have Wentz. They're going to have a bunch of guys.
You know, outside the defensive backs and offensive linemen, there is nothing. I can't think of any players that were quality that played for the Browns.
Well, plus the entire NFL system is designed to instill parity.
Exactly.
So even the worst teams are supposed to be able to get better, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the whole system's
like,
designed that way.
for example, look at the Texans.
The draft.
They can't get the quarterback
Exactly.
position right, but they're still leading their division, and they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yes. And the Titans, they're a train wreck too, and they're still going to end up competing for playoffs. But the Browns are already done. They're probably done for 3 years. I mean, how is it you can be so bad as to actually beat the system in reverse, right? I mean, it's not supposed to work that way. The NFL is not supposed to work this way, right? You're supposed to be able to eventually, in fact, the 4 division leaders in the NFC this season, none of them made the playoffs last year.
The 70 freaking Sixers have now eventually
that's
figured it out. Like, they win games this year.
Yes, the Cleveland Browns in the NBA. Yes, the Cleveland Browns in the NBA. But the Browns, have they made the playoffs since they came back into the league? I don't think they have. I don't believe that they have. Maybe one season. But so
I want to say they did make it one season. Or they had 10 wins or 9 or they had 10 wins and missed it.
9 wins. They were 9 and 7. I think they made it. I think they made the playoffs one year. But they've just been a train wreck. And by the way, they've had like three different general managers, 3 different presidents, 2 different owners. I mean, it's like,
I think we have a shot. I'm just saying, why not? I'm sure that we'll do it. We'll both do it for the combined salary of just the GM. I'm just saying, just throwing an idea out there. Browns, if you're listening. I'll tell you what. We'll make the Browns a deal.
I'll volunteer.
Here's the deal. So we'll be the
Yeah.
general manager and president of player operations, and we'll also, Kevin, you do the play-by-play, and I'll do the color commentary. And they got a broadcast team and a front office in one. Boom.
They'll save so much money.
Yes.
They might even be able to get a quarterback.
A couple.
If we save that much money.
A couple.
And
we'll and we can point out some quarterbacks that will be worth a shit. So,
oh God, I don't get it. Deshaun Kaiser, are you kidding me? Really? That's your guy? That was your guy? That was your draft pick? I mean, Notre Dame was 4-8 last year.
That's the thing.
They
I know.
Quarterback? Really? That's your guy?
And that's the guy that even a couple games split with Malik. What's his name? Malik. The transfer to Florida, Malik. I can't. Zaire. Malik Zaire. Malik Zaire.
Yeah.
And Malik Zaire started a few games too, so like they couldn't figure that out. And we saw Malik Zaire last year and at Florida, and he didn't look good in anywhere. So
I mean, seriously, man, seriously. So anyway. NFL.
I feel like the owner must have lost a bet. The owner lost a bet to someone. He's like, listen, if you do this, you have to pick the least likely guy to succeed at quarterback for at least the next 2 decades. And it's like, talk about a bad beat. That owner had a bad bet. He had to have lost some bet to where he has to pick this.
And here's the deal. They have gobs of draft picks. They just take like 5 quarterbacks with their top draft picks. You got to figure one of them could be decent, right?
I mean, they picked like a 32-year-old rookie quarterback. Like, how do you draft in the first round a 32-year-old rookie. Like, the guy is over the hill in football terms.
Did they take Whedon?
They took Whedon
from
Oklahoma State.
Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. Well, and to your point, that's a Big 12 quarterback.
There we go.
They never pan out anyway, and they took an old guy. They took like a geriatric Big 12 quarterback.
Like, he's mature. And they said, oh, we can't go with the mature guy. Let's find the most immature guy we can find. Let's draft Johnny Manziel, because that's going to be fun. He'll sell a bunch of jerseys and then throw up on him, and now we have to release him. The only guy, I think he's still the only guy in history where that both Nike and Rosen was like, yeah, we can't be around you. Like, those are the two mops for
what's
PR.
Manziel doing now? What's Manziel doing now?
He said he was trying to get in shape to get back in. He did meet with a couple teams at the beginning of the season and worked out for a couple teams, but I know a CFL team does own his rights right now, that's just what smart agents do. They want to make sure that if you want to play and go somewhere, you can. But I think he's just doing personal, he's just doing personal appearances. That's all he's doing right now.
But if he wanted to play football with his skill set, the CFL would be perfect for him if he could play football. I don't think kid can work hard enough to actually keep a job. I mean, I just don't think he can.
Yeah, I don't think he cares.
Because, I mean, even Vince Young's going back up to the CFL. I mean, Chuck Rudy played in the CFL and made it to the NFL. Warren Moon went to the CFL, made it to the NFL. And Warren Moon's in the Hall of Fame.
Why isn't Colin Kaepernick playing in the CFL then, Kevin? If he wants to play football so bad, why isn't he playing in the CFL? He should be in the NFL. But this is the thing is, like, it's irritating me about Colin Kaepernick because I'm almost split on both sides of this. I think that he should be able to protest every way he can, and he should be able to sign with any team that that wants to sign a good quarterback, because he is one of the best 32 in the league. But on top of that, if he wants to play football, why doesn't this guy have a YouTube channel of him like freaking Uncle Rico on Napoleon Dynamite at least? I mean, or playing in the CFL. Like, be in something meaningful where people can see that you want to play and you're continuing to play. But he's been out of football for a year now, and it's just I mean, that's the thing is, like, teams are questioning, does he want to play, or does he just want a platform again? And I don't know. I really do question. He says he wants to play, but I don't know if he wants to play.
Yeah. I question his desire, because I think he's making demands to teams that are interested in him that make it tough for them to sign. And so he says he wants to play. He's suing the league. But I think if he really wanted to play, he would have worked out a deal. I really do.
And a CFL team owns his rights.
These guys just want to listen. Michael Vick got back in the league, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Philadelphia's Michael Vick, and he actually played.
Yeah.
He actually played.
But he went to prison for long enough for. And again, owners. Okay, the thing is, what he did was. Here's the thing: is like, if you look at it like this, again, I'm gonna oversimplify this and put it in his terms. What he did, the rich white owners can forgive that. It's something that upset their wives, but they can get over it if you can play. What Kaepernick did upset the white owners, and they're like, "F you." So now it's a pissing contest.
Yeah,
that's really what it seems to be.
But at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, they're looking for the best players. I mean, come on. I mean, you can name the guys that have been convicted of domestic violence and gotten back in the league because they're good players. Ray Rice didn't get back in because he was shot. His career was done. He was a 10-year veteran running back. They didn't want, that's right. But there's been guys that have gotten back in. At the end of the day, if a guy can play, so I have a feeling that the demands that Colin Kaepernick's agents put on the deal, he's asking too much money.
He wants the 14.
I just don't know if he wants.
He still wants the $10 to $14 million a year, which again, that's what the top level backups are getting. That's what was offered to Mike Glennon in Tampa. That's what Dan going to the Eagles. I mean, I'm just saying the top backups are getting the 12, 14 million.
Yeah, but those guys don't have baggage. Those guys didn't do something that pissed off the league. At some point, you got to go, okay, I'll take a 1-year contract at $6 million. I'll bet on myself. I'll play and, get back in the league. And I think that's what that he's not willing to do, because which leads you to believe the same conclusion you draw is make him want to play. I mean, he played pretty well last year. I mean, he played pretty well for a really bad San Francisco team in 2016.
And I had the numbers. Effective. I don't have the numbers here. Again, that was actually an article I started. It was one of the 5 billion articles I started writing, didn't finish. But he didn't. I mean, people saying, "Oh, he sucked." He actually had. He was top half of the league in most statistics last year. I mean, on scrambles, he has the highest passer rating outside the pocket in the National Football League last season. That includes higher than Aaron Rodgers, who's a freaking magician outside the pocket. That's his whole thing.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. You see me here, now you don't. Oh yeah, by the way, touchdown, boom. Like that, and then Kaepernick had a better passer rating than Aaron freaking Rodgers. So I mean, it's not like the guy can't play. And by the way, it was the Montreal Alouettes that held his rights, and he did tell them he's not interested in playing. Manziel, on the other hand, I understand that he may play, which I think that season's over. Again, this was something from September. He did sign with a team. He signed with the Tiger Cats.
No, CFL's over. CFL's over now. So
they had the Grey Cup already.
So
he clearly didn't play then.
Close to it. They might be. Yeah. The Grey Cup was last week, I think. But I mean, it's interesting to me, and we'll bring this topic up. It's interesting to me that you've got some of these guys that are good athletes that won't get off the quarterback track. I mean, Tim Tebow, I firmly believe, could have been an HVAC, a tight end, a running back, right? And so I question his desire to play. I mean, and I actually like Tim Tebow very, very well as an announcer. I think he's a good analyst, obviously, because he played the game. He has a lot of insight. He's a smart guy. But I don't know. I question his desire to actually play football at the NFL level, because he could have played at any number of positions.
Yeah, and he was coached by your new hero coach, Dan Mullen. We got to get into that too. The coaching carousel. Let's do that next. By the way. Yeah.
Okay, all right, because I've got to sign off at 10:30. So let's get into the coaching carousel before I sign off, because I've got some insight for you on just how good a coach Dan Mullen was at Mississippi State. And you dispute this, but the numbers don't lie, my man. The numbers don't lie.
Okay, so just to give you guys an update, as I reported live this week, Dan Mullen is the new head coach for the Florida Gators. He was their third option. They first offered Chip Kelly, who turned down the offer. Then they offered Scott Frost, who again turned down the offer. And they offered Dan Mullen, who accepted it. So Dan Mullen is the new coach. As a lot of people know, he's previously a coordinator under Urban Meyer. He did coach Tim Tebow and Cam Newton there before, ending up as the head coach for Mississippi State. Yes, he's done well for that program's standards, but when he got hired again, he out of available coaches or coaches that in college football, he's above average, slightly average, and he's a decent hire for any program. What I've understood that Florida's looking for is somebody that's an offensive guy and high offensive numbers. I haven't seen those high offensive numbers and scoring going on in Mississippi State. I feel like this was, as in Dan Mullen's words, kind of a lateral move for him. And for them, for Florida, it was a lateral move as well in coaching hires. Again, a slight upgrade from McElwain. Again, I do think McElwain is a good coach. I think he's a better coordinator than a head coach. From all that I've seen, Florida is an extremely hard place to thrive in a lot of ways. They're very behind the eight ball when it comes to program facilities, but they are a much easier to draw recruits to. They do have championship pedigree, and they do have a pretty loyal fan base. I'm not going to call them crazy because I'm saving that for the sorry not sorry segment for Tennessee. Don't worry, you guys, it's coming up. So I think he is a good hire for Florida based on some of the other things. I think Mike Leach would have been a better hire. He would have probably got them better results, closer to the nature of what they wanted out of a head coach. But I'm not thrilled. Slightly above average coach. There's not a lot of elite coaches, really above average coaches in college football, and I think he was slightly above average.
Let me give a different perspective for you, okay? And just so in the last 65 years, okay, at Mississippi State, Dan Mullen has the highest winning percentage of any coach in the last 65 years in Mississippi State. And so I know it's like, oh, well, big deal. That's like, I don't know, whatever comparison you want to use. But, and the last guy to be that good was Darrell Royal, who went to establish Texas as a national power. And so my point being that Dan Mullen has excelled at a place. He has a 60% winning percentage overall, 46% in the SEC, which for Mississippi State is amazing. For a program, and by the way, Jackie Sherrill, one of the great coaches in college football, only had a 500 winning percentage at Mississippi State and won only 42% of his games in the SEC. So this is a guy, Dan Mullen, who, number one, has taken a program and much like what Frank Beamer did at Virginia Tech, what Snyder did at Kansas State, what some of these guys have done to elevate these programs. He did that at Mississippi State. Secondly, he was an assistant coach at Florida. He was a recruiter. He knows the recruiting territory, which is, I think, the problem with Jim McElwain was he was coming from the Midwest. I mean, from the West, and he didn't really have the understanding of the geography from a recruiting standpoint.
He was the offensive coordinator for Alabama.
Well, he was. That's right, he was. But they went west and came back. But but Dillon has been at Florida, and so I think he's an excellent hire. I'm surprised they got him because he's in a really good situation at Michigan. I'm surprised that they lured him to leave there because he could retire at Mississippi State. I mean, there's no that he needs a long time, and so I'm impressed that the AD was able to get him.
Which one's a better job?
Florida. I think he's going to be successful. Oh, Florida's a better job in the short term.
Okay.
Long term,
who could pay him more money?
Dan Mullen could retire. Oh, Florida for sure, right? I mean, there's no question that the better job is at the University of Florida. But if you're making $2 million,
and you know what? After that loss this year to Georgia, the fan base and pundits were saying that Dan Mullen might be on the hot seat. They had a stretch there. It was rough, close games. I mean, this isn't the first time.
Those are, yeah, but Matthew, those aren't knowledgeable football people that had Dan Mullen in the hot seat. I mean, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the history of the university, and look at what he's done. For people to say that they're not knowledgeable, they're not understanding of what he's done with the program. Okay, so
right.
I don't trust those people. I trust myself because I watch as much football and I cover as much as anybody else. Dan Mullen's situation at Mississippi State was straight secure. He's going now to a situation where yes, I can see why he's going there because Florida is one of the premier programs in the country if you get it going. And that took Florida to 3 consecutive SEC championship games.
2. And
he gets fired. That's a tough job, right? That's a tough job. And so, I mean, I think Dan Mullen is going to be successful, but he's got Georgia to contend with. I mean, it's just like going to SEC West School. You've got Alabama and Auburn and LSU to contend with. I mean,
well, let's talk
challenge is there.
Let's talk about his history.
Dan Mullen. The expectation for Dan Mullen, at Mississippi State was not to win the SEC West. It wasn't. That wasn't the expectation. The expectation for Dan Mullen at Florida is to win not just the SEC East, but to win the SEC championship. So he just ratcheted it up a level.
Okay.
And I applaud him for taking down that challenge, right?
So here's Dan. When I look at coaches, the ones that we see historically that are competitive at the end of the year and vying for championships, we're coaching at. The things that we would top in coaches is as the year progresses, they tend to get stronger and they get better. And unfortunately, with Dan Mullen, they seem to break down, and what was working early and in the middle of the season just isn't working by the end of the year. I mean, I remember it's basically it's a tale for like the last 5 years where they've been a number 2, a number 5, a number 10, a number 6 team in the country, and then they just fall apart. And I mean, they're in the top 25 now. But not really, and again, they're not vying. Again, like we said, any team outside the top 4 really doesn't matter. They'll do a New Year's 6 game. They'll get a nice bowl. They'll get some money from it. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because they're not playing for a national championship anymore. And again, in the retrospect, if what they're looking for is somebody to vie for championships, seeing a coach that can go somewhere and end the season strong with 2 losses, winning, 10 games every year. Maybe the only teams that you're losing to is Alabama. You're losing to Alabama every year. Every third year to LSU. You've lost once to TAMU. But that's not the case. They're losing to Mississippi State. They're losing to Mizzou. I mean, they're losing in some of these. Again, I believe one year that they lost to a team that it was a directional school. And it's just like, what are we getting out of Dan Mullen? I feel like what they've got at Mississippi State, again, maybe the administration, it seems like maybe they'll have him around despite the fan base, because that's probably the best that they've had so far. But fan bases evolve because they get used to winning, and now they get this put in their head that, oh, we're better than we were before, so now we should get better than that. We should contend for a national title. We should be beating Alabama every year, every other year, and not losing to them all the time. We should be doing that. And they start to create other expectations of the coach. That's just how it kind of works in today's society. People don't hang around. Duke is in a situation where Cutcliffe, he brings a team in, comes up to national, has a good high net year. They win the ACC. By the way, Duke's ACC more than Miami has since joining the ACC. But anyways, he's still there. He's had really good seasons.
I agree.
He's had some bad seasons. He's had in between seasons, and they feel like he's our ceiling. He's the best that we can get, and I feel like that's what Mississippi State feels like. He's the best that we can get, and Florida taking him away. I don't know if like I said, that's why I feel like it's a lateral move for him in some sense, and them. With what they had respect to McElwain, it's somewhat of a lateral move there too. I don't know how many more wins he provides them. I don't know how much more offense he provides them. Overall, if they're looking for more offense and a big upgrade, Dan Mullen's that guy.
Let me take your points one by one. Because I want to. Number one. The fade down the stretch has to do with depth. The SEC West is very difficult to play in. You're getting beat every week by really good physical teams. A program like Mississippi State cannot recruit the depth that some of the other teams can within the conference, namely LSU, Alabama, Auburn, even Texas A&M. Okay, so you're fourth, fifth, or sixth on that list. So the season's going to take its toll on you. Secondly, moving to Florida gives him a better recruiting base. It gives him a stronger ability to recruit players that he never would have had a chance to get at Mississippi State. Okay, Mississippi State was getting the players that couldn't to Florida or LSU or Florida State or Georgia. He'll have a chance to get those players now, okay? And he'll be competing even terms with them. And as a recruiter, if he was able to get some of those guys at Mississippi State, just think how successful he'll be at Florida to get those guys, okay? Thirdly, Dan Mullen is an offensive coach. He did coach up Tim Tebow. And before that, he was somewhere else. He coached somebody else before that. I can't remember where Dan Mullen was before that. And so I think a more of an offensive-minded philosophy to Florida. That's been their big complaint the last 3-4 years under McElwain. Even though they were able to win the SEC East, they weren't competitive against the West. And so I think that Dan Mullen does bring that to play. And so I don't think it's a lateral move at all for each one of them. I think that it's an upgrade for Mullen because he can get better athletes. He goes back to a place he's familiar with, and they're familiar with him. The boosters are familiar; they like him, and so I think it's a win-win. I don't think it's to your point. I don't think it's a huge upgrade on either side. You know what I mean? It's not huge, but I think it is a little bit of an upgrade. And I do think that Dan Mullen can bring some additional excitement, at least offensively, to Florida football, which they've been lacking for the last several years. Will he be? Is he an Urban Meyer? I don't know that he's an Urban Meyer. There's only 3 or 4 of those guys around. Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, then the list gets really short, right? I mean, so I don't know if they're going to get that guy, but I think Dan Mullen is a good hire.
90 seconds.
And I think it's a good move for Mullen. The question now, as the list gets shorter, who does Tennessee get? Who does A&M get? Who does Arkansas get? Who does Nebraska get? I mean, Nebraska's probably going to get Scott Frost. But who do the other guys get? Who's out there? Where do you go in the SEC to fill those coaching positions? Personally, I think that Arkansas cut Brett Bielema loose.
60 seconds.
Early. I think there was a mistake. And I think they're going to pay for it. We'll see. Kevin Sumlin's done a good job at A&M. The expectations at these schools are so high, that everybody thinks they should be winning national championships and winning conference championships, and it's just not feasible.
I agree.
Go out, win a bunch of football games, fill the seats, right? Win exciting football games, please your fan base, have a good time. That's all about it, and I think it's gotten really, really crazy, okay? The expectation levels of these schools.
I agree.
They're going to pay for it. They're paying for it.
And we're here in the overtime segment now.
10 seconds.
Let me just welcome everybody that is tuned into the overtime segment that's watching and listening over on Facebook Live on the Cold Hard Truth on Sports page on Facebook for overtime. And we were talking a little bit before we came into overtime about the coaching carousel. Dan Mullen hired at the University of Florida. A lot of people were very excited about that. The second offer they made, and you were talking a little bit about it there before, was Scott Frost. Florida offered Scott Frost. He turned them down. Now, I could tell you that from what my sources have told me and other people that, I don't know if they have the same sources or not, that Scott Frost to Nebraska was pretty much a done deal. There wasn't another consideration by him, really the powers to be, even though they just got director for the University of Nebraska. And the thought was kind of, Scott would go, just hired the last Ihurst. He hired Mike Riley, who again, he did consider Scott, but he decided to hire Mike Riley instead. Obviously, that didn't work out, and Scott Frost took the position at UCF. Nebraska and Frost, through this process, probably being a longer process where he would coach for maybe 4 or 5 years before, that vacancy would come open, and then they would hire him. I think both sides have kind of understood that this was going to eventually happen at some point. This happened a lot quicker. I believe Scott feels some remorse kind of about going into a situation and building a program in hopes in only 2 seasons at UCF and then kind of having them crashing down on him. And yes, again, the contract is, from what I've understood, is written. Now, about a month ago, from what I understood, it's a 7-year, $35 million contract. 7-year, $35 million contract. Now, that was before Florida made their offer. From what I understand, since Florida has made an offer to him, Nebraska had decided to be all in on Frost, so they may have offered him as much as $8 million a year. 7 years, 35 is $5 million a year, so up to $8 million a year. So I don't know where that figure falls yet. I haven't gotten any new information on that, but that's essentially what it is. He has not come out and said anything about it. The University of Nebraska has been very quiet and coy about it out of respect to Scott. He's a very process guy. He's a lot like Tom Osborne in that respect. His focus is on the game and the task at hand. He's not going to allow any distractions to come in, and he's not going to entertain those things. Again, you can kind of see the lineage of guys, the Parcells, Bill Belichick, Tom Osborne, all guys just void of distraction.
I agree with you, Matthew. I think it's a done deal. I mean, I was listening to another commentator today, and I know from my experience at Virginia Tech, Frank Beamer came back to coach his alma mater, and very few former players get to coach at their alma mater, and they relish that, right? That's a big deal. And I have no doubt that Scott Frost will be the next coach at Nebraska, especially since would be more as likely anyway to hire him was the University of Florida, because he's been recruiting in the state of Florida the last couple of years. But gosh, when you get a guy like Scott Frost and his name and his recognition, going into homes in the Midwest, and his passion for Cornhusker football, and I think it's a great hire if they can get him. I know Tom Osborne is a big advocate for Scott Frost, from what I've heard from other media outlets, and so I think it's great. I think it's a win-win. We talked about this 2-3 weeks ago, even before. I guess the last time I was on the show was almost a month ago. We talked about that Scott Frost was a great candidate, and we knew at that time that Mike Riley was on his way out. I think it's great. I love the fact that the guy's going back to his alma mater to coach. As an alumnus, what do you think about Frost as a coach? I just to put that back on you. He's done a great job at UCF, but that's not Nebraska. That's not the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That's the AAC. What do you think of him as a coach at what was once? I know they want to be back, but they haven't been nationally relevant for quite some time.
Yeah.
Can he bring them back to national relevance?
From what I saw, again, kind of my questions were when they moved him up and they promoted him for 3 years. He was defensive coordinator, 2 of them under Chip Kelly. And the year after Chip Kelly left, my question was, hey, this looks like a system thing. Like, Oregon hasn't skipped a beat, and in fact, they kind of look like they've gotten better in some respects after Chip Kelly left and went to the NFL. And then the year later, Scott Frost leaves, and you just see how the program really just fell apart offensively.
They tanked.
Exactly. So, and then I look at UCF, a program only 5 years ago who was up there. They lose their quarterback, obviously, to the NFL. Bortles, right down the road in Jacksonville. And we see the decline there to where the year before Frost comes in, they are winless. They literally had 0 wins. So there's I think it was 51 or 52 players that are on this UCF team that was on a winless Knights team. Had Scott Frost, which last year they broke even, and they went to a bowl game under his first season there, and this season have experienced an undefeated season. Talk about being in all plateaus of winning or losing, whichever way you want to look at it. And what he does as far as coaching, it isn't. Again, that was my question. How is he going to do it? I see a lot of what he does as far as coaching, addressing media, both on offense and defensive side, is a lot like Tom Osborne, a lot like him in many respects. Now, his offense philosophy is funny as some people that don't know a lot of college football history, particularly in Nebraska. His offensive philosophy is actually closer to Bob Devaney, who was more of he had passing quarterback, which is David Humm, who's been on this show 4 or 5 times, has been a guest on the show, and still, I think, the only Nebraska quarterback to go to the NFL as a quarterback and win a Super Bowl. But his philosophy is more spread mixed with pro, and he's been around. He's been around Bill Walsh. He's been around Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells, the Bills. The best. Those are the Bills. You know, if you want to be around Bills, those are the 3 Bills in football you want to be around. And then on the defensive side too. The pedigree is there, and I think with his decision making has come across, and seeing him be able to take a team that was winless to a bowl game in 1 year and undefeated next year, I see he had to inspire guys that were not recruits to win. And that's what I'm looking at. That's what you that's how you take guys that are walk-on and players that are castaways and couldn't get scholarships at big programs, and you're able to develop them and mold them into something that's winning. That's what Nebraska needs. There are not many 4 or 5-star recruits ever in the state of Nebraska or the surrounding states, and you have to go to other states to try to do that. And he genuinely has a type of offense and a personality. He's young enough in recruiting to where I think he can still bring in guys from elsewhere to play in his offense. The same way when he did recruiting in Oregon, you know, to get guys to come to Oregon. This is Eugene, Oregon. It's not something that is a highly sought after place to live, you know?
Yeah, and that's what they're talking about. Chip Kelly being able to go to UCLA and how he'll be able to just. I mean, he was coaching 2- and 3-star recruits at Oregon to national championship games, and when he can do at UCLA, it's going to be amazing. The other thing I'll say is that Scott Frost reminds me a little bit of Justin Fuentes, who's at Virginia Tech now, who was a coordinator at TCU under Gary Patterson, and then went to Memphis, another AAC school, right?
Yeah.
Turned them around. And now Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech has back-to-back 9-3 regular seasons. If Scott Frost can do that in Nebraska, I think he'll be I think he can. I think that's what they're looking for. A guy that can do that, right? That can bring that back. And you can't argue that Virginia Tech's not relevant nationally. Now we had 2 nationally televised games on Saturday night against Clemson and Miami. I mean, those were national games, right? The outcome of those games impacted the national landscape. I think that if Scott Frost can bring that back to basketball, which I think he probably can. He's in the I'll say the weaker half 10, just like Virginia Tech is in the weaker half of the ACC.
Yep.
The Coastal, although it's not weak, it's just you know, your chances of taking on Iowa and Minnesota are better than your chance of taking on Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State, and Michigan every year. So I think he has a chance, and I'd like to see him take that on. And obviously, what he's done as a coach, because when he left, Mark Helfrich, he got fired, right? When he lost Scott Frost, the program went south. So you have to attribute some of that to Scott. So, you know, I'll give that to say. I think it's a great hire for Nebraska, and I think it's a great move for Scott Frost. I hope, and I'm a Nebraska fan, by the way. I have a good friend that's a Nebraska alum, and she is she bleeds red and white like you do, as you do, and so I wish them success. I'd like to see them. You know, Nebraska is one of those programs that it's like Miami and Notre Dame and USC and some others that when they're nationally relevant, it's better for college football. It just is. It's a fact. It's better than when those traditional powers are powerful, and I'd like to see them get back in that situation. And they certainly haven't been there for a while. And actually, you know, Bo Pelini wasn't that bad.
No, he wasn't.
They let him go because he was a little bit of a hothead. He wasn't that bad. But
he
they
upset.
back. But I think
the athletic director. That's who. He's upset the athletic director. He was kind of a hothead, but that's okay. Getting upset and being passionate, he was fine with that. He was. The thing is, when you go to a college town of a program that has historically competed at a high level, there's a certain amount of privilege mixed with crazy that you're going to get that is in between loyalty and fandom from the base of the fans. And it's, they look and expect for one thing because they've been used to it. And then on the other hand, they see
oh my God,
close.
Bob Delaney, then Tom Osborne. I mean, you got championships coming out the wazoo, right? I mean, it's I mean, that's what
that was the last 5 years.
Excellence, right?
He was winning the last. Again, Tom Osborne coached. He was the head coach of Nebraska for 20 years. He won a national title. 20 years. He got 20 years to win a national title. There's questions in the late 80s, early 90s. Can he win the game?
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
Finally. In 94.
They
and
won
then again in
two.
95. And then the last one was won in 90 and 97. And if anybody questions Scott Frost as a quarterback, go watch that 97 national championship game.
Oh, my God.
Watch
oh
that.
My gosh. Was that the one where they built Florida?
Yeah. No,
Who'd they win?
It was 95. It was Tommy Frazier. That was 95. And 97.
Okay. Tommy Frazier, 90. Yeah. Okay. Well, I got to run, man. I know my wife's been out of town. I've got to reconnect. So, good to do this again. Let's do it next week.
Absolutely.
Next week we'll have the Final Four set. We'll have the Final Four set.
It'll probably be our Final Four.
What's your prediction? Who do you predict? Final Four. Who do you think?
I like Georgia to beat Auburn and get in. Wisconsin to play close. Beat Ohio State. I don't know. That's the game toss. It's kind of a toss-up. Last time I thought Wisconsin was going to beat Ohio State, it turned out completely the opposite.
59-0.
Yeah, it was completely the other direction. Yeah. So okay, let's. Okay, Ohio State wins and Georgia wins. I think that's the only way Alabama really does get back in. If Wisconsin wins, the committee will keep Alabama out. Whoever wins the SEC is in. I don't think they're going to put a second one in. If Clemson wins, I think Clemson wins, Oklahoma wins, and Georgia wins, and Wisconsin wins a close game. And Alabama's not in for the first year, for the first time of the Final Four teams. And Auburn's on the outside too. But the big uproar is Auburn beat Alabama and Georgia once. Who did Wisconsin beat in the end? See, that's the thing. That's kind of the craziness that we're going to end up looking at. Is will the committee put in Alabama or Auburn if even if Wisconsin wins out? Again, it's really, Wisconsin is in because it's kind of what they're saying right now. They've been pretty consistent on that. So that's going to be interesting. I think if those two teams, there's only one SEC team in, then I think that's going to, I think we're going to see some more push for 6.
Well, and I'm going to sum up after I give my prediction. I mean, the winner of the SEC and the ACC games are going to get in. So it doesn't matter where the hell Georgia is at the moment, even though there's 7. And so you've got either Clemson or Miami or Georgia or Auburn in. Wisconsin, Ohio State. Ohio State's the favorite. You know what? I like Wisconsin's defense. I'm going to go chalk. I'm going the top 4 to stay the same. I think Clemson beats Miami. I think Auburn beats Georgia again. I think Oklahoma beats TCU, and I think Wisconsin beats Ohio State, and that's your Final Four. That's my prediction. So we'll see how that works. That leaves Alabama out, of course, obviously, because they're not in the top 5, as it is. The only way Alabama gets in is if somehow chaos occurs. TCU has to beat Oklahoma. If TCU beats Oklahoma, I think Alabama takes that spot. I really do. And if Ohio State beats Wisconsin, then TCU can get in. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm going to go chalk. I'm going to go 4 teams are there for a reason. I think Wisconsin's going to beat Ohio State. Nobody thinks that. I think, Ohio State's going to win. I don't think so. I think Ohio State's inconsistent. I think Wisconsin's well coached. They have a really good defense. I think they're going to win. So I like the top 4 to hold. So obviously that won't happen. So we'll see where I'm wrong next week. How that worked out. But I like those 4 teams. I'm going to stick with them.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, man. Okay, I'll talk to you next week, man.
All right, see you.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's Kevin Kress, ladies and gentlemen. You can pick up his books. You can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Just you can buy them online. It's the P.K. Frazier novel series. Again, historic novels around sports books. He's working on his 4th book right now. P.K. Frazier goes into broadcasting, announcing for golf. The first 3, I have them. I actually have 2 of them just sitting right here. I do read back through them. But a great series. So, again, I want to kind of extrapolate a little bit more of what has went on in the coaching carousel. So Arizona State fired their head coach. Texas A&M fired their head coach. Kevin Sumlin being the coach that got fired at Texas A&M. He's been linked to rumors of NFL jobs. Where he goes next, we don't know. But it's rumored that there is a deal in place for Jimbo Fisher, who is currently the head coach of Florida State. He's not going to address, in the same way Scott Frost isn't addressing it, he's not going to really address that matter, especially in the season. They have Louisiana Monroe this week to continue forward with their process of trying to become bowl eligible. So they were last week, from what I understand, beating Florida. But from what I understand, and I'm still pulling that up here. So as far as Texas A&M goes, so letting go Kevin Sumlin means that they owed him within 60 days $10.4 million, okay? And then they would be bringing in, from what a source tells me, that Jimbo Fisher would be the next Aggies, and we'd be looking at a 5-year contract at $7.5 $5 million per year is what I'm told roughly what that contract would be. Again, that's the understanding. Now, I have seen several other reports that he may not leave Florida State. I don't know if that's now the case or if that's just more sidetracking to not lose recruits, to not lose booster support. Again, they have one more game against Louisiana Monroe, and they have a bowl game after that. So I wouldn't expect anything till Sunday at the very soonest to hear how he feels about that at all. He was the hand-picked predecessor of the University of Bobby Bowden, the guy that brought the women's college to football prominence. And they kind of, in a somewhat unceremonious way, removed him and inserted Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher has done great there. Obviously, he's won a national title, and he's been in competition. He's been in the Final Four, and they lost to Oregon. He lost to Scott Frost, the offensive coordinator, who was the offensive coordinator for Oregon that beat him that year out in California. But he's done well. I mean, he is a top, 1% coach. And the Aggies are going all in. They've spent tons of money, raising money and spending money on new facilities and beefing up what they have available there to bring in better recruits. And Kevin Sumlin just hasn't been able to get them to the hump where they want to be in the SEC or in national prominence. So they want to go a different way. He's kind of flirted with leaving anyways, so it wasn't a tough move for them, especially if they hit Jimbo Fisher. And from what I understand is there's some sort of agreement in principle what his contract would be there at Texas A&M after the season. Again, I haven't heard anything. Again, people at USF that I've talked to have disputed it. He's not leaving. I haven't heard anything about negotiations on buyouts, what the buyouts would be. For Jimbo, I had the figures up here. Do you have them up there? Do you have them over there? No. I had the figures. Well, I'll put it in an article because I'm putting an article together on this topic. So his buyout will be in there, approximate buyout. So that's what we're looking at there. A couple days ago, like right as everything was happening with this, again, Dan Mullen was. I got a message saying that he was going to be the hire, and then shortly after that, they said that Mullen's lawyer was actually in the office with the athletic director at Mississippi State negotiating the buyout. So I was comfortable moving forward in that. And then not too far after that, so once Dan Mullen was off of the board, my question was, okay, Tennessee was the first school to kind of pressure out the head coach. They fired Butch Jones, basically mid-season. And they waited around. They flirted with John Gruden. Now, anybody that bought in John Gruden is going to be the head coach at Tennessee. Again, I really don't think people understand. Again, it's been a decade since he's coached in the NFL. And it's been 17 years or almost 20 years since he had been a coach in college football. And again, he was assistant. I think it was a grad assistant, even that. So it's not even like that he was a head coach there or a high-level coordinator. No. He cut his teeth and he got into the NFL. And he worked his way up through the NFL to be a head coach. He won one Super Bowl. Things were kind of starting to fall apart in Tampa. And he got fired, and he hasn't gotten a job since then. I think he's a good coach. I think any college football program would probably be it'd be wonderful to have him as a head coach. I don't see John Gruden ever going to coach in college. There's another guy that is taking an interview for a college opening who I wouldn't have suspected doing either. However, John Gruden has a really unique job. He has his office in Tampa. He does his Gruden quarterback camp. He does Monday Night Football, and then when the draft comes around, he has his. He basically gets to invite and handpick each and every quarterback prospect, or really, pretty much probably any prospect, if he wants them to come in, to be a part of that. So a really unique situation that he's in. He's getting paid really well to do that. He doesn't have to bother with recruiting. He doesn't have to bother with boosters. He doesn't have to bother with crazy owners. He doesn't have to bother with a general manager, or he has no competition for his job. None. He is one of, during the times of year that he has his quarter camps and stuff, he's one of the higher rating shows that they have on ESPN. And he's doing well with Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football is actually one of the few NFL programs that ratings are up on average for the year. Thursday Night Football is also up, but also they're on a number of different networks. Amazon, again, paying out the gazoo for an in-game deal. So if you are a Prime member and you didn't know, you can watch Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. So I don't see him leaving his position. He's going to flirt with ideas, because what that does just shows, if he shows the interest, then people will keep giving him attention for it. And that just shows his employers that I have leverage. I have options. So that's good for him. He should keep doing that. That gives him leverage. He can take, it just shows that he could take any high-end job in college and several jobs in the NFL. I mean, they're rumoring that he's going to go back to Tampa. I just don't see him getting back in to coaching. Again, he wants to because he has, and that's who he is. But again, he makes a lot of money what he's doing, and he doesn't have to deal with a lot of the headache. If he wants to be a part of things, and again, I put up an article about a month ago on Steve Spurrier. Spurrier is getting the itch. He wants to get back into coaching too, but he doesn't want to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator. He just wants to kind of be in the background. He wants to be involved somewhere and have some sort of input in a very minimalistic way, because he wants to be a small part of the day-to-day stuff, but he doesn't he doesn't want to be in the day-to-day grind that goes on with being a head coach or an offensive coordinator. So, I mean, he suggested that probably maybe at the like a quarterback coach at the high school level or even at the college level, somewhere close. Again, he was part of the decision-making process at the University of Florida on the hiring of Dan Mullen. So a lot of these guys that have retired show interest to coming back in. I just don't see John Gruden as one of those. And then a lot of people were like, oh, maybe Dan Mullen will come. They kind of came and went, right? Oh, maybe we have an outside chance at Scott Frost. No. Tennessee never had a shot at Scott Frost. And like I said, outside of UCF, I don't think anybody had a shot at Scott Frost besides Nebraska. Tennessee is in a unique situation because the last couple of years, they've had some pretty high expectations. They've been ranked preseason pretty high and just have not lived up to the expectation. Also reported 2 days ago, the University of Tennessee had agreed and even sent a memorandum of understanding to Greg Schiano to become the next, and that's what I reported, of the University of Tennessee. But the fan base banded together in a mob-like mentality, protested kind of like what they did with Lane Kiffin, but in reverse, about Greg Schiano. And it was really disappointing to me to see some members of the sports media who engaged and entertained in this revolt and the defaming and harmful things that they said about Schiano were unnerving, suggesting that he was part of the Jerry Sandusky child molestation case, that suggesting that he was a witness to an act and didn't report it, and he was named in filing for sex crimes on children. It was disturbing. Now, I can say, my contact with the Bucks organization has been minimal throughout the years with direct contact, but what I do understand is their front office has always put in a lot of due diligence into any sort of hiring or background that they've done. Doesn't matter if it's front office people or players or coaching staff. And I know for a fact that they put in a lot of time doing background checks on Greg Schiano. And Mark Dominic, then general manager, came out and said as much. And then after that, his firing. Yet even after his firing, and just to get a picture of the room at one point in Tampa, you have DJs, shock jock DJs, shock jock talk radio, whichever genre and whatever genre they decide to be in at this particular time. It went from rock to talk. I don't know if it's political or rock again. I don't know. It's talk, I guess. Paid for signs, billboards that literally just said, "Fire Shiano." Several places in the. One of them was from Raymond James Stadium. So every day you travel up and down Dale Mabry. If he's turning there on MLK to go down to $1, he'll go past the sign that says "Fire Shiano." They didn't even bring this up. Somebody that spends thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to put up billboards for months telling the ownership, front office of the Buccaneers to fire Shiano, didn't even bring this up. And ESPN hires him. We know all too well how politically correct that they will be at times. They hire him as an analyst. Never brought. Then he gets hired as the defensive coordinator for Ohio State under Urban Meyer. Never brought up as an issue. All these places, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, an NFL franchise. You have ESPN, one of the top 5 sports brands on the planet, hires him. And then Ohio State, one of the top 5 college football programs in the country, hires him. They all do background checks. None of them come up with this and say there's any issues with this. But now he gets hired in principle. I guess if there's a memorandum, it's in actuality, which I do believe. I'm not certain of this, that he has very strong grounds for a legal suit here because he was offered the job. And he has documentation he was offered the job, and then it was pulled from him. So they may still have to pay him money here. We'll have to see then. And depending on how this affects his future, again, this is why it's so important in the media that things are reported with accuracy. He may have grounds to go after publications that put him in a defaming light, that slandered against him. Again, there's freedom of the press. But if someone, again, if his legal team can show that someone has adversely affected his life in a way, and they were negligent in the process, again, the free speech and free press may not apply in that context. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I can see how they may have to pay out. Again, maybe legally from a stance of legal action, as far as criminal action, there's nothing there from what I see. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but from a civil side, you don't have to have beyond a reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is fine. They're good with reasonable doubt in civil court, when you can have somebody that's burglarizing your house fall in your skylight and stab themselves by accident and win a lawsuit against the homeowner for them burglarizing, breaking into their house, obviously, that's there's civil court for you. And the Tennessee fans and certain members of the media, they are media. They're on major news outlets. It just, in the attacking, revolting way. That, again, that's where the I'm sorry, not sorry comes in. And we'll go ahead and do that segment here. I'm on board. It's not up for that. So you can picture Demi Lovato coming on. Sorry, not sorry. Everybody knows the song. It's a very popular song. My kids love the song. I love the song. But the I'm sorry part, where I will give some credit to Tennessee fans, is on the front that they were unhappy with something and they mobilized to protest and make it known that they were unhappy with the actions that were taken. Okay? Good for you. You mobilized. Now, the way you did it, though, you guys went way over the top. You guys went not protest. Y'all went crazy mob. That's unnecessary. You guys, I don't know what, again, I've never understood that happy or unhappiness, because you get these, you get happy. We won a national title in basketball. Let's set cars and trash cans on fire, and cars and loot businesses, have looting going on. It doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't make any sense to me at all. We're upset with a coach. Let's burn a couch. I can actually say that there's never a point in time in my life I've ever been like, I feel like the best reaction or action at this moment is to set a couch ablaze. That has never occurred to me, ever. I've never thought about setting trash cans on fire or flipping cars or looting stores. Like, I don't get where that idea comes up. Again, it's unhappy and happy. It both happens. You're so excited you can't contain yourself. Let me take a brick through a business window and let me get a new big screen. Like, you know, it's like, win or lose, let's riot. We're rioting. That's the thing we should do now. Let's riot. Let's burn couches and flip cars. That's a great idea. That's how, that's the way to accurately display how you feel. It's vandalize things. So I'm sorry in the fact that these media outlets are reporting, and this fan base with their mob mentality have done harm to someone and their career that did not deserve it, that did not ask for it. And now he's stuck with it. You guys may have killed any opportunity he may have for getting a coaching job. Buccaneers couldn't find any problem, any issues with this related to it. ESPN, nothing. Ohio State, nothing. So all of a sudden, Tennessee has an issue with this? I'm not going to go political. But if I did, we could talk about some people in the news recently that are accused of or may have committed acts more heinous that may be sitting official come a few weeks from now. I don't know. I'm just saying it seems a bit over the top and reckless for the level that they went to on this. So I'm not sorry that if you guys can't find a coach, I don't know. It's going to be tough. And if you're relegated to anybody that's willing to take the job, I'm fine with that. Now, the Volunteers did interview Mike Gundy, the head coach of Oklahoma State, who some in years past is rumored to be on the hot seat because he hasn't been able to win the big game too, but he's been there for 14 years. That is his alma mater. They've been spectacular under him. He fits right in with the Big 12, right in with his program. And as far as facilities that can get, T-Boone Pickens has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in Oklahoma State, and they have wonderful facilities there, and it's not going to get much better for that. They got brand new stadium, brand new everything, just about. So the only way Tennessee is going to be able to really get someone in is either ridiculously overpay for somebody or try to find somebody who is a Tennessee guy. Now, Jason Witten, I don't know if it was an offhand comment or whatnot that he said he would go and coach him. I know a lot of people thought maybe, it has to be a great idea. Let's have Jason Witten come coach, be the head coach. He turned it down. David Cutcliffe was rumored. He said, no, I want no part of it. Evidently, they've talked to T. Martin, who was the quarterback in 98 when they won the national title. Watched their 97 national championship game against Nebraska with Peyton Manning. Scott Frost was the quarterback. And that's the game I referenced earlier in the show. Nebraska won 42 to, it was 42-17. Yeah, it was 42-17. My memory serves me correctly. But it's going to be a little tough sledding for the Volunteers to find a head coach. And it's going to be tough. Or maybe it won't be. All right, I got, actually, I just got a message. It says, Tennessee has offered Mike Gundy the job. This is from, how did I see this earlier? This was from much earlier today. They offered him the job. It doesn't show accepted it. There's also said that they were eyeing Chad Morris as well. So, hold on, let me check this text message real quick. So, okay, so what I see is that Gunn did not accept the position, but they offered it to him, and now they're considering Chad Morris, who's the head coach at SMU. That's what I have here. So Mike Gundy's not going anywhere. So, okay, so yeah, I was right. It's actually going to continue. What's this? From what so what this message tells me is Tennessee offered Mike Gundy $7 million a year. He went all the way to Texas, to Dallas, to meet with him in Dallas. They offered him $7 million a year, right? And he turned it down. Mike Gundy at $7 million a year, turned it down. That's a substantial raise to what he's getting paid at Oklahoma State. He just got a bigger contract this year. He just renewed there. So they would have had to buy out that contract that just got extended and upped, and then pay him $7 million a year on top of that. Wow. Maybe I'll apply. All right. Now, Arizona State, like I said, they fired their head coach, and I reported a little earlier today that Herm Edwards, ESPN NFL analyst, he's former NFL head coach and player, will interview for the position. I don't know if Herm Edwards takes that gig or not. I could see Herm Edwards taking a gig in coaching before John Gruden by far. But, he coaches the Under Armour All-American game every year. He's done it, I think, for 3 years. I think he's done the Shrine Games before, the Senior Bowl. He's been involved with several he's been involved with several different functions like that involving either graduated or current aspiring pro football players, generally in the college football ranks.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
But that's the show for tonight. Be sure to tune in next week to the show. You can tune in on Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker, SoundCloud. Try to do YouTube Live again for the overtime segment next week. I got Facebook Live on now. We'll do again as well. So follow the show at the CHT on Sport. Check out the website, thechtonsports.com, and you can see up here on the board, if you see the video, my handle's at Matt Long Sports. That's all I got for tonight. I'm out.